Paragraph 1. The Vanishing Chapter of Shattered Dreams. Imagine this. A mother and her young daughter step onto a narrow wooden canoe under a canopy so thick it turns day into eternal twilight, laughing about the monkeys they'll spot and the pink river dolphins they'll chase. What should have been a 3-hour Amazon excursion becomes an abyss that swallows them whole. No scream, no overturned boat found immediately, no final photo left on a phone, just silence. In real life, Colombia's Amazon has seen such vanishings. Tourists on river tours in Leticia or Me Too have disappeared since the early 2000s, some linked to flash floods or currents, others to darker forces like unregulated guides tied to illicit networks that control remote tributaries. The Hart family, Jordan, a cautious software engineer from Seattle, Julia, a spirited primary school teacher who dreamed of showing her child the world's last wild places, and 10-year-old Daphne, bright-eyed and fearless, had saved for 2 years for this trip. They had already marveled at Bogotá's Gold Museum and Cartagena's colorful colonial streets, places where history whispers through every cobblestone. But the Amazon was supposed to be the crown jewel, a safe, hotel-booked eco-tour with a certified guide. When Jordan woke that morning doubled over with violent stomach cramps from street food the night before, he insisted they go without him. "Take pictures for me," he said, forcing a smile through the pain. Julia hesitated, her maternal instinct flaring, but Daphne's excitement won out. They kissed him goodbye, promising to return by lunch. They never did. The guide, a local man named Ricky, not officially registered despite the hotel's claims, steered them off the main Inirida River branch into narrower channels where tourist boats rarely venture. Hours passed. Jordan, recovering enough to stand, waited at the dock until sunset turned to night.
Panic set in.
He alerted the authorities, but responses were slow. Remote stations in VOP's department often lack resources, boats, or fuel. 9 weeks of agony began. Jordan refused to leave Colombia. He learned basic Spanish phrases, hired private searchers when police efforts stalled, and pored over maps late into humid nights. He discovered that the region, spanning VOP's, Guaviare, and Amazonas departments, hosts not only extraordinary biodiversity, but also hidden cocaine processing labs and trafficking corridors that have existed since the 1980s when cartels like Medellin and Cali first pushed into the jungle after pressure from urban crackdowns. Corruption scandals have rocked local police repeatedly. In the 2010s and 2020s, dozens of officers in eastern Colombia were convicted of collaborating with armed groups, accepting bribes to ignore suspicious boats or even deliver people into danger. Jordan felt this shadow growing. Each day, without news carved deeper lines into his face. He thought of Daphne's gap-toothed grin when she learned to say mono, monkey, correctly, of Julia's quiet strength reading bedtime stories, even on vacation. Grief mixed with guilt. Had he pushed them to go? Philosophical teachings from Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius's reminder that we control only our reactions, not events, kept him moving forward. He told himself, endurance is not passive suffering, it is active refusal to surrender hope. In English learning terms, consider the idiom, to keep one's chin up, maintaining courage despite despair. Jordan embodied it, refusing to let despair win. Yet every jungle dawn brought the same question. How much longer can love survive uncertainty? What would you do if everything precious vanished into green silence? Would you wait, or would you walk into the unknown yourself? That choice defines character more than comfort ever could. Jordan trudged behind 2 officers, Diego Mendoza and Carlos Ruiz, machetes flashing against vines like metronomes counting despair. 9 weeks had passed. Hope had thinned to a thread. The jungle assaulted every sense, the metallic tang of wet earth, the incessant buzz of insects, the distant roar of howler monkeys sounding eerily, like lost human cries. Real Amazon searches have mirrored this exhaustion. In documented cases from the 2020s, relatives of missing tourists in Colombia's southeast often faced bureaucratic delays, language barriers, and whispers of foul play tied to narco-traffico, drug trafficking. Jordan noticed the officer's glances, too quick, too guarded. When he spotted the carved coordinates on a tree trunk, 2.3 degrees north, 69.8 degrees west, followed by a deliberate J. His pulse surged. Julia's initial, he knew instantly. The wood was pale beneath the cuts, fresh. Yet Mendoza dismissed it. Old markings, senor. We've seen them before. Jordan photographed them secretly before his phone plunged into the river during a staged boat lurch. He dove after it, lungs burning, retrieving the waterlogged device in a moment of raw determination. Back at the station in Me Too, Detective Vargas, a rare honest officer with a file thick with corruption cases he had personally investigated, pulled Jordan aside. Many here are paid to forget, Vargas whispered, showing records of 17 jailed colleagues from the region alone. Historical context matters. Colombia's long conflict, 1964 to 2016 peace accord with FARC, left power vacuums filled by splinter groups, Clan del Golfo, and others who use the Amazon's vastness for labs and routes. Organ trafficking rumors, though rare and often exaggerated in media, have surfaced in border zones where vulnerable people disappear. Jordan learned Ricky, the guide, was found dead, body removed before autopsy, fueling suspicions of cleanup. Vargas arranged a joint operation, slipping trusted men into Mendoza's team. Jordan palmed a nausea pill offered en route to Puerto Esperanza village, refusing to risk being drugged. That night, shadows entered his room, a pillow pressed over his face. He fought until darkness took him. Waking in an underground cell beneath a cocaine facility, he met Ricky, alive, imprisoned, awaiting organ harvest. Ricky confessed, his petty theft plan backfired when he drifted into cartel territory. The family witnessed too much. Advanced English note. Backfired means an action produced the opposite of the intended result, like a firework exploding in the handler's hand. Jordan's philosophical anchor shifted to Viktor Frankl's logotherapy. Meaning is found not in escape from suffering, but in how we bear it. Seeing Julia and Daphne alive across the compound, even bound and led away, reignited purpose. He fought, escaped during a truck ambush, reclaimed his backpack, containing the carved wood tool Julia had used, and called emergency services on his damaged phone. Every step tested resilience. Modern relevance for English learners. Phrases like, against all odds, capture such moments, succeeding despite overwhelming probability of failure. The jungle taught Jordan that survival is rarely solitary. Even one ally, one memory, one carved letter can alter fate. So ask yourself, when trust collapses and betrayal surrounds you, where do you find the courage to keep searching, not just for others, but for the person you still hope to become? Deep in Vopes, Jordan crouched behind ferns, watching armed men transfer his family to a concrete building that looked more like a fortress than a warehouse. The boss, a cold-eyed man in crisp clothes amid jungle filth, shook hands with a buyer carrying a briefcase, discussing quality merchandise and premium for healthy adult specimens. Horror crystallized, not just drugs, but human organs, a black market horror occasionally documented in Latin America's fringes. Though exaggerated in urban legends, real cases have appeared in Mexico and border zones. Julia had carved those coordinates during bathroom stops, memorizing GPS glimpses from guards' devices, scratching letters bit by bit on trees, hoping against hope. She endured chemical burns mixing coca paste under threats to Daphne's safety. Daphne, though terrified, whispered songs to keep sane. Jordan's rescue attempt exploded into chaos. Gunfire echoed. Police, Vargas's men, and Ricky leading them, stormed in. Jordan stabbed a guard's thigh with the very wood shard Julia had used, a poetic circle of defiance. He reached the locked room, kicked the door down with Ricky, untied his family. Daphne's sob, "Dad, you found us," shattered 9 weeks of silence. Julia, voice cracked from disuse, whispered his name like prayer. Backup arrived. The boss, buyer, and corrupt officers were cuffed. In hospital, Vargas revealed Ricky's full story. A petty thief whose robbery plan went catastrophically wrong. Yet Ricky's cooperation helped dismantle a network spanning 3 countries. Historical parallel. Colombia's 2016 FARC peace left power gaps exploited by new groups, echoing how indigenous communities like Huitoto or Tucano peoples have long used ancestral knowledge to survive, tracking edible plants, navigation, skills the Mukitui children employed in their real 2023 40-day jungle survival after a plane crash. That miracle rescue reminded the world, traditional wisdom often outlasts technology. Jordan reflected on resilience's deeper lesson. Suffering strips illusions, revealing what truly matters: connection over possession, courage over safety. For English learners, study collocations: narrow escape, close call from danger. Turn the tables, reverse a bad situation, against the grain, opposing norms, like Jordan defying corrupt authority. The jungle's greatest teaching? Adversity exposes character, but also forges it anew. What hidden strength lies within you, waiting for a moment when everything. Hospital lights in Me Too felt alien after endless screen. Julia's chemical burns were bandaged. Daphne drew pictures of pink dolphins she still hoped to see someday. Malnutrition and bites would heal. Trauma would linger longer. Jordan sat between their beds, holding hands across the gap, a living bridge. Julia recounted forced labor, overheard plans to sell them, hers for organs, Daphne's for worse. Yet she never stopped carving, never stopped believing Jordan would come. Daphne asked, "Did Mom really save us with a tree?" Julia smiled weakly. "We all saved each other." Therapy awaited back in the States, PTSD counseling, family sessions, but small victories emerged. Daphne hummed again. Julia read aloud from a borrowed book. Ricky faced charges but received leniency for cooperation. Vargas's bust became one of the region's largest corruption cases, echoing real 2020's arrests of officers linked to trafficking. Philosophically, Jordan embraced Ubuntu. I am because we are, an African concept resonant here. Identity forms through community, not isolation. The Amazon, vast and indifferent, mirrored life's duality. Beauty and brutality coexist. Modern relevance. English idioms like silver lining, positive in bad situation, fit imperfectly. Sometimes the lining is scarred but still holds light. Learners note phrasal verbs: pull through, survive hardship, break down, emotionally collapse, or mechanically fail, like Jordan's phone. Recovery taught Jordan forgiveness, not for the guilty, but for himself. He no longer asked why us, but how now? A shift from victimhood to agency. The family vowed, no more safe, adventures without research, trust earned slowly, gratitude spoken daily. The jungle receded outside the window, still green, still immense, but its terror diminished. They had walked through fire and emerged tempered. What legacy will your trials leave? Not in scars, but in the wisdom you pass. Back in Seattle months later, ordinary sounds, traffic, school bells, felt miraculous. Daphne returned to class, sharing carefully edited stories of the big green place. Julia gardened, hands healing, planting native species as quiet defiance. Jordan worked remotely, donating portions of income to Colombian indigenous rights groups protecting Amazon territories from deforestation and trafficking. They spoke openly of nightmares, but also of gratitude. The carved coordinates became a framed photo, proof that love leaves marks even stone cannot erase. Universal wisdom surfaced. Viktor Frankl's meaning through suffering, stoic acceptance of the uncontrollable, indigenous reverence for nature's lessons. In English learning, master nuanced expressions, come full circle, return to origin transformed, weather the storm, endure hardship, find one's way home, literal and metaphorical reunion. The story's modern relevance? In an era of climate crisis and inequality, the Amazon reminds us, remote places are not empty. They hold interconnected lives, fragile ecosystems, and moral tests for humanity. Jordan's journey teaches that persistence, discernment, and compassion outlast fear. No disappearance is ever truly final if memory and action endure. Their family rebuilt, not as before, but stronger, more present. The jungle no longer haunted, it instructed. As sunsets paint their windows gold, Jordan whispers the promise daily. never again separated. What mark will you carve in your own wilderness? A message of hope for those still lost, or silence that lets darkness win? The choice is yours every single day.